Welcome back to another journey through the world of Pokemon. This time, we'll be exploring the Johto region, a land rich with tradition, mysteries, and Pokemon that have become iconic to generations of trainers. Johto first appeared in the games Pokemon Gold and Silver, later expanded in Crystal, and then beautifully reimagined in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. It is a region inspired by Japanese culture and history, filled with shrines, towers, and legends that tie closely to its Pokemon. The Johto region sits just west of Kanto, creating one of the few times in the series where two full regions are connected in a single adventure. Across Johto's grassy plains, ancient forests, and sacred mountains, trainers encounter creatures that are both familiar and entirely new. Some are gentle, some are fierce, but all hold a special place in the lore of the Pokemon world. Tonight, we will travel slowly through Johto, meeting these creatures and uncovering the stories and facts that surround them. At the very beginning of a trainer's journey through Johto, they are given the choice of one of three partner Pokemon. Among them is a small, green, leaf-bearing creature that has become a symbol of the region's peaceful nature. This is Chikorita, the grass-type starter of Johto, and one of the most recognizable Pokemon to emerge from the second generation of games. What makes Chikorita interesting is how its design reflects Johto's connection to nature. Unlike some of the flashier starters in later generations, this one has a simple, almost minimalist design. Its most distinctive feature is the large leaf that sprouts from its head, a leaf that not only gives it a unique appearance, but also plays a role in its abilities. According to the Pokédex, this leaf gives off a sweet fragrance that can calm hostility and soothe those around it. This ties perfectly into Johto's themes of balance and harmony, themes that are seen throughout the region in its temples, towers, and even its music. Chikorita was also one of the first Pokemon designed with a softer, less aggressive look for a starter. Compared to the reptilian style of Bulbasaur before it, Chikorita is more rounded, smooth, and approachable. Some fans see this as a reflection of the shift in tone between the Kanto and Johto games. Where Kanto was about introducing the world of Pokemon and setting up the foundation, Johto leaned more heavily into storytelling, mythology, and a gentler aesthetic. In battle, Chikorita was often considered the hardest of the three Johto starters to use. Grass types in Gold and Silver had a rough time, especially because many of the early gyms and wild Pokemon in Johto carried types that resisted or countered it. The first gym leader, Faulkner, specialized in flying types, which had a natural advantage. The second leader, Bugsy, also resisted grass moves, and later, Whitney's infamous Miltank was an enormous challenge for Chikorita users. Because of this, many players saw Chikorita as the hard mode choice among the Johto starters. Despite this, plenty of trainers loved it for its design and its role as a steady, reliable companion. Chikorita evolves into Bayleaf and then Meganium, and each stage reflects the same calm and nurturing spirit. Bayleaf has a stronger and slightly more intimidating appearance, but it still carries that leaf motif. Meganium, the final form, resembles a peaceful dinosaur-like creature with petals forming around its neck. According to the lore, Meganium's breath can instantly revive dead grass and flowers, making it a Pokemon tied to renewal and life itself. In terms of media appearances, Chikorita also played a notable role in the Pokemon anime. In the Johto journeys, Ash caught one during his travels, and it quickly became known for its stubborn but affectionate personality. This version of Chikorita often tried to prove itself, especially against Ash's other stronger Pokemon, Eventually, it evolved into Bayleaf and continued to show great loyalty. This portrayal gave the species an extra boost in popularity, showing it not just as a starter, but as a character with emotions, struggles, and growth. From a design perspective, Chikorita was also part of the second wave of Pokemon that helped expand the franchise beyond the original 151. Many fans worried after Red and Blue that any new Pokemon would not feel as iconic or well loved as the first generation. Chikorita, alongside the other Johto starters, proved that the designers could create new creatures that felt fresh while still fitting into the Pokemon world. Its soft color palette, expressive leaf, and overall gentle nature helped cement Johto's identity as a region that leaned more into themes of tradition and balance. Another interesting aspect of Chikorita is its reception in different parts of the world. In Japan, it was fairly popular, though Cyndaquil often outshined it in terms of fan base. In the West, however, many players found Chikorita to be their least favorite of the Johto starters due to its battle struggles. This created a divide in how it was remembered. Over time, though, nostalgia has softened much of that criticism, and today it is often looked at with fondness as part of Johto's charm. Speaking of nostalgia, Johto as a region is one of the most nostalgic places in the entire franchise. Not only did it expand the world, but it also let players return to Kanto after defeating the Elite Four. This made Gold and Silver unique among the main series games, as they effectively contained two regions in one. Starting with Chikorita as a partner meant that players could experience that expanded journey with a calm, leafy companion by their side. The combination of Johto's rich lore, the challenge of its gyms, and the connection to Kanto made the second generation a fan favorite for decades. Chikorita also stands out as part of a starter trio that each represented a unique identity. Cyndaquil leaned into fire and offense, Totodile into energy and water power, and Chikorita into calmness and healing. This gave players a different kind of choice than in Kanto, where the starters felt more balanced against each other. In Johto, the differences were sharper, and choosing Chikorita often meant accepting a harder path in the early game. Even outside of the main series, Chikorita has appeared in multiple spin-off games. In Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, it was one of the available starters for players to use. Its gentle nature was reflected in the personality quizzes that determined which Pokemon you would become. It has also appeared in games like Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Stadium 2, and more recently in mobile titles. Each appearance adds another layer to its identity as one of the defining Pokemon of the Johto era. Looking at Chikorita today, it remains an important reminder of what made Johto unique. It is not flashy, it is not overly powerful, but it embodies the quiet strength of the region. Johto was a land of shrines, myths, and connections to nature, and Chikorita fits perfectly within that setting. Its fragrance that calms others, its ability to heal the land, and its gentle design all make it an emblem of Johto's peaceful yet challenging journey. So while many trainers may have chosen fire or water for an easier adventure, those who picked Chikorita gained not just a Pokemon, but a symbol of what Johto was all about: harmony, resilience, and growth through adversity. The second choice for new trainers beginning their journey through Johto is a small, timid fire type known as Cyndaquil. Where Chikorita represents peace and growth, this Pokemon embodies hidden strength, quiet determination, and the idea that even the smallest spark can grow into something powerful. Cyndaquil quickly became one of the most popular starters in the Johto region, and for good reason. Its simple yet clever design, unique mechanics, and strong presence in the anime all contributed to its status as a fan favorite. Cyndaquil's design takes inspiration from echidnas and shrews, small mammals with elongated bodies and timid behaviors. Unlike other fire-type starters, which often appeared more aggressive or flamboyant, Cyndaquil looks shy and introverted. It tends to curl into itself and close its eyes, as if uncertain about the world around it. But the flames that erupt from its back tell a different story. When threatened or excited, it unleashes bursts of fire along its spine, transforming its small frame into a blazing force. This duality between timid exterior and fiery potential made Cyndaquil stand out as a design that told a story. In battle, Cyndaquil offered something of a middle ground between Johto's starters. Unlike Chikorita, which often faced early disadvantages, or Totodile, which provided raw strength and coverage, Cyndaquil gave players a balanced option. Its fire typing made it a useful ally against Bugsy's Scyther, one of the most infamous early gym battles in Gold and Silver. At the same time, its move pool expanded steadily, giving it access to moves like Flamethrower and later Eruption, one of the most powerful fire-type moves in the entire series. Cyndaquil evolves into Quilava, and then Typhlosion, each stage expanding on the theme of fiery determination. Quilava grows sleeker, faster, and more confident, with its flames becoming more pronounced. Typhlosion takes this further, turning into a volcanic powerhouse whose flames can erupt explosively from its body. According to the Pokédex, Typhlosion's flames can create shimmering heat haze that blurs its form, making it both awe-inspiring and intimidating in battle. For many players, this evolution line represented one of the most satisfying growth arcs among all starters, beginning timid and small and ending in a blaze of glory. Cyndaquil's popularity was boosted significantly by its role in the Pokémon anime. Ash caught one during his Johto journey, and it was portrayed as shy but reliable, often struggling to ignite its flames at first. This portrayal made it relatable, showing that even a timid Pokémon could grow into a dependable fighter. Over time, Cyndaquil earned its place on Ash's team, and fans grew attached to its personality. In later series, it returned in special appearances, even evolving into Quilava, which gave longtime viewers a sense of closure. Beyond the anime, Cyndaquil has also had an interesting place in the broader Pokémon franchise. In spin-off games like Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, it was a common starter option, reflecting its popularity among players. In Pokémon Stadium 2, it was given charming animations that emphasized its shy nature. More recently, Cyndaquil reappeared as one of the available starters in Pokémon Legends, Arceus, though with a twist. In this game, its final evolution, Typhlosion, received a regional Hisuian form with ghost typing, creating an entirely new interpretation of the line. This was a surprise for many fans and gave Cyndaquil renewed attention in the modern era. Looking more closely at the design philosophy, Cyndaquil is a strong example of how Johto Pokémon embraced simplicity. Its smooth lines, small size, and limited color palette give it a clean, approachable look. Unlike some later starters that leaned heavily into complex designs, Cyndaquil proves that less can be more. The flames on its back serve as the focal point, and by keeping the rest of its design muted, the fire feels even more powerful. This approach matched the tone of Johto itself, where storytelling and tradition took precedence over spectacle. Cyndaquil also embodies Johto's balance of nature and myth. While it is not tied directly to the region's legends, its role as a starter ties it to the journey of countless trainers. In a land filled with sacred towers, legendary beasts, and ancient myths, having a partner like Cyndaquil represents the beginning of one's own personal legend. The choice of a starter in Johto feels especially significant because of the region's themes of tradition and legacy, and Cyndaquil's quiet strength makes it a perfect fit for that narrative. From a gameplay perspective, fire types were relatively rare in Johto outside of the starters. Players who didn't choose Cyndaquil often struggled to find alternatives, with options like Growlithe or Vulpix appearing later in the game. This scarcity made Cyndaquil even more valuable, as it gave players early access to a fire type that could stay with them throughout their journey. Many fans still remember the relief of sending out a Cyndaquil or Quilava to handle Bugsy's Scyther, one of the early roadblocks of Johto. One of the most fascinating details about Cyndaquil is how it connects across regions. In Gold and Silver, players could eventually travel from Johto back to Kanto, and bringing Cyndaquil into that region created an interesting bridge between the two generations. For example, facing off against the Kanto gym leaders with a Typhlosion by one side gave players a sense of carrying Johto's identity into the older, more familiar setting. This blending of regions made the second generation unique, and Cyndaquil was often at the heart of that experience. Cyndaquil's name also reveals something about its design. It comes from cinder and quill, highlighting its fiery nature and the spines from which it produces flames. This naming convention shows how much thought went into creating Pokémon that felt cohesive, both in appearance and concept. It's a reminder of how Game Freak carefully crafted each design to resonate with players while maintaining internal consistency. Over time, Cyndaquil has developed a reputation as one of the most beloved fire-type starters. While other generations introduced flashier or stronger fire types, few captured the balance of charm, relatability, and power that Cyndaquil offered. It stands as a reminder that being small or timid doesn't mean lacking strength. It just means that strength takes time to reveal itself. When reflecting on Johto as a whole, Cyndaquil represents the fiery heart of the region. It may not be tied to legendary myths or ancient shrines, but it symbolizes the courage and determination that every trainer needs to succeed. Its flames represent potential, the spark of adventure that grows into something unforgettable. So while Chikorita may embody harmony and Totodile energy, Cyndaquil holds the middle ground, a steady flame that, once kindled, never goes out. The third option available to new trainers setting out across Johto is Totodile, the water-type starter known for its playful personality, wide jaw, and surprising strength. Where Chikorita leans toward calm support and Cyndaquil embodies quiet determination, Totodile is all about energy, enthusiasm, and raw physical power. This balance between the three choices highlighted the thoughtful design of Johto's starter trio, each offering not just a different typing, but a distinct personality that reflected the diversity of journeys players could take. Totodile's design takes inspiration from crocodiles and alligators, with exaggerated cartoon-like proportions. Its large mouth and small body emphasize both its comedic charm and its dangerous potential. The character design tells a story on its own, something small and energetic that can become a real powerhouse over time. Unlike Cyndaquil, which starts off timid, Totodile comes across as bold from the very beginning, often throwing itself headfirst into battles or playful antics. This design philosophy matches Johto's emphasis on growth, showing how different personalities and approaches to life can all evolve into strength in their own way. In the mainline games, Totodile provided an early advantage thanks to its typing. Water types have historically been some of the most versatile in Pokemon, and Totodile was no exception. With access to moves like Water Gun, Bite, and later Surf and Ice type coverage, Totodile quickly proved itself to be more flexible than many players expected. Against Faulkner's flying types in the first gym, Totodile didn't have a type advantage, but its decent bulk and move variety made it reliable. Later in the game, its evolution into Croconaw and eventually Feraligatr gave players a physically imposing ally capable of handling some of Johto's toughest battles. The Pokédex entries across different versions highlight Totodile's mischievous nature. It is described as a Pokémon that loves to bite anything it sees, not always out of aggression, but out of curiosity or playfulness. While this often gets it into trouble, it also makes Totodile feel more alive and relatable than many other creatures. That mischievous personality was captured beautifully in the anime, where Ash's Totodile became one of the most memorable members of his Johto team. Its high-energy dancing, constant smiling, and habit of chomping onto things turned it into comic relief. But when serious battles arrived, it also showed surprising strength and resilience. Totodile's evolutionary line represents one of the most dramatic growth arcs among Johto Pokémon. Croconaw, its middle stage, takes on a chunkier, more stable design, showing the awkward teenage stage of growth. By the time it becomes Feraligatr, the design is fully intimidating, a towering, muscular reptile with immense physical power. According to Pokédex entries, Feraligatr can crush opponents with its jaws or overwhelm them with sheer speed, despite its size. This evolutionary progression fits perfectly into Johto's themes of growth and maturity, showing how a playful, reckless starter can develop into a fearsome champion-level partner. In terms of competitive battling, Feraligatr has had an interesting history. While it wasn't considered the strongest water type in earlier generations, the introduction of abilities like Sheer Force later gave it a significant boost. This ability powered up many of its moves without the usual drawbacks, making it a legitimate threat in battles. Players who grew attached to Totodile early in their journeys often found themselves pleasantly surprised when their Feraligatr could stand toe-to-toe with some of the most powerful Pokémon. Totodile also stands out because of how rare water types were early in Johto. Unlike Kanto, where players could fish up Magikarp or find multiple early game water types, Johto offered fewer options. This scarcity made Totodile especially valuable, as it gave players a reliable water type that could also learn Surf, one of the most essential moves for traversing the region. Surf wasn't just a powerful attack, it was a key to exploration, unlocking new areas and hidden secrets across Johto. Choosing Totodile meant that from the very beginning, players had a partner who could both battle and help them navigate the world. Johto's design philosophy leaned heavily on creating a world that felt interconnected and alive, and Totodile fit into this perfectly. Its cheerful, mischievous demeanor made it feel like more than just a tool for battling. It felt like a genuine companion. Trainers often recall how Totodile's antics in the anime, or its charm in the games, gave it more personality than many other Pokémon at the time. This sense of liveliness added to Johto's identity as a region focused on depth and character rather than just strength and spectacle. When examining the cultural side of Pokémon, Totodile also carries symbolism. Crocodiles and alligators are often seen as creatures of both playfulness and danger, capable of surprising speed and strength despite their bulk. Totodile captures that dual nature in a way that children and adults alike could relate to. On one hand, it's adorable and funny, with its little dance and oversized grin. On the other, it evolves into a creature that demands respect. This contrast helps explain why so many players grew attached to it, as it mirrored the growth and unpredictability of real-life journeys. The music and atmosphere of Johto also tie into Totodile's experience. Exploring the region with a Totodile at one side felt different than with the other starters. Where Cyndaquil offered steadiness and Chikorita patience, Totodile gave a sense of adventure and excitement. Traveling through the early routes, crossing rivers, and eventually surfing across vast bodies of water with this partner created some of the most memorable moments of Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Even in the remakes, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Totodile retained this sense of liveliness, appearing to hop and play when following behind the player. Another interesting fact is that Totodile's line connects Johto thematically to Kanto. In the first games, players had access to Squirtle, a turtle-like water starter, while Johto offered Totodile, a crocodilian counterpart. This deliberate contrast shows how Game Freak designed Johto's starters to reflect Kanto's while still offering something new. Squirtle's evolution line emphasized defense and tactics, while Totodile's line emphasized raw physical power. By drawing these parallels, Johto strengthened the bond between the two regions, which was one of the most appealing aspects of Generation 2. From a design standpoint, Totodile is also notable for its simplicity. It uses a limited color palette of blues and reds, with sharp, defined shapes. The focus is on its expression and body language, rather than overly detailed features. This kind of design allowed it to be easily recognizable, memorable, and appealing across both games and media. Its big grin in particular became iconic, showing how personality can be captured with just a few simple lines and shapes. Over the years, Totodile has remained a popular choice among fans. While it hasn't always been the most competitive starter, its charm, history, and role in the anime gave it a lasting place in Pokémon culture. Many players who grew up with Gold, Silver, and Crystal still remember their Totodile as the start of their journey, and its legacy continues in remakes and spin-offs. Ultimately, Totodile represents the joy of beginning an adventure with enthusiasm. It may not be the calmest or most careful partner, but its energy ensures that no journey is ever boring. It shows that even recklessness can lead to growth, and that joy is as important a part of a trainer's story as victory. So, while Chikorita embodied patience and Cyndaquil determination, Totodile brought laughter, energy, and strength to the table, making the Johto starter trio one of the most well-balanced in the franchise's history. As trainers step into the tall grass of Johto's earliest roots, one of the very first Pokémon they encounter is Sentret. Much like Rattata in Kanto, this little creature acts as an introduction to the wild Pokémon of the region, a small and seemingly simple companion that carries more meaning than players may realize at first glance. Where Johto's starters give players a sense of identity and choice, Sentret represents the common thread of the region, the everyday Pokémon that fill its fields and forests, shaping the texture of the world and reminding trainers that the journey begins not with legendary creatures, but with the simple act of meeting something new in the grass. Sentret is a small, brown, furry Pokémon with a round body, long ears, and most distinctively, a striped tail that it often uses to stand upright. This pose, balancing on its tail, is one of its most recognizable traits. Unlike the aggressive stance of Rattata or the darting movements of other early-game Pokémon, Sentret's upright posture makes it seem cautious, observant, and almost sentinel-like, as if it is keeping watch over its surroundings. This impression is not accidental. Its Pokédex entries repeatedly describe it as a lookout, a creature that relies on teamwork and vigilance to survive. If danger approaches, one Sentret will sound the alarm, warning the group and helping them escape. This concept of community and teamwork fits beautifully into Johto's broader themes. Johto as a region emphasizes balance, heritage, and the idea that strength comes not just from individuals, but from relationships and traditions. Sentret reflects this philosophy on a small scale, showing that even the most common Pokémon rely on each other, their families, and their instincts to thrive. It's a subtle detail, but it reinforces Johto's storytelling, where legendaries embody harmony and even ordinary creatures live by those values. In gameplay terms, Sentret filled a role familiar to players coming from Kanto, the common normal type found early in the journey. Yet unlike Rattata, which leaned toward offense with high speed and access to moves like Hyper Fang, Sentret felt more defensive and cautious. Its evolution, Furret, carried these traits further, becoming sleek, elongated, and known for its speed and adaptability rather than raw power. For many players, Furret wasn't necessarily the strongest partner, but it was a loyal one, available from the beginning and capable of learning a surprising variety of moves, including many utility options that helped in exploration. Furret's long, slender body became something of an icon in the community over the years. Its design is simple, yet charming, evoking comparisons to ferrets and weasels with a warm, approachable look. In fan culture, Furret eventually gained mimetic status, especially with the rise of looping animations and music that showed it walking endlessly forward. This long Furret walk became a beloved symbol of coziness and nostalgia, perfectly matching Johto's role as a region of comfort and tradition within the Pokémon series. Sentret and Furret also highlight a shift in how Game Freak approached early game Pokémon in Generation 2, where Rattata and Pidgey dominated Kanto's early routes. Johto diversified the experience. Trainers could find not only Sentret, but also Hoot Hoot at night, making the early routes feel alive with variety and influenced by the passage of time. This emphasis on time and daily cycles was a defining feature of Johto, and Sentret's presence during the day created a natural balance with Hoot Hoot's nighttime vigilance. Together, they reinforced the sense that Johto's world was dynamic and full of rhythm. Beyond gameplay, Sentret's role as a lookout reflects cultural values often seen in folklore. Many animals and myths are depicted as guardians or watchers, protecting their groups from unseen threats. Sentret, though small and cute, embodies this archetype, showing how even unassuming creatures play important roles in their ecosystems. Its watchful stance on its tail is almost symbolic of the vigilance and care that define life in Johto, where tradition and balance are treasured. For players, catching a Sentret often meant their first encounter with Johto's wildlife. It might not have been the strongest choice for a long-term team, but it served as a gentle introduction to the mechanics of catching and battling. Many trainers recall how their very first capture in gold, silver, or crystal was a Sentret, making it a personal milestone in their journeys. And for those who chose to keep it, evolving it into Furret provided a dependable, if modest, companion who could stick with them from the first steps to the Pokémon League. In competitive play, neither Sentret nor Furret ever reached the heights of top-tier Pokémon, yet their charm lay elsewhere. Furret's move pool was unexpectedly wide, allowing it to function as a jack of all trades, capable of learning moves like Surf, Ice Beam, or Shadow Ball in certain generations. This versatility, while not enough to make it dominant, gave it a unique niche for creative players who enjoyed surprising opponents. More importantly, its role as a beloved companion and meme-worthy icon ensured that it remained relevant in fan communities long after its competitive relevance waned. Another interesting detail about Sentret and Furret is how they contributed to Johto's world building. While many Pokemon are designed with fantastical or mythical elements, these two leaned heavily into realism. Their designs closely resemble actual animals, making Johto's roots feel grounded and natural. This design choice created a balance with the more fantastical creatures of the region, like the legendary beasts or mythical Celebi, emphasizing the harmony between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Thematically, Sentret's cautious nature can also be seen as a metaphor for new beginnings. For a trainer just starting their journey, the world can feel intimidating. Sentret embodies that nervousness and caution, always keeping watch, always wary of danger. Yet as it evolves into Furret, it gains confidence, becoming more sleek and mobile. This mirrors the growth of the trainer themselves, starting uncertain but eventually becoming bold and adaptable as they gain experience. In the anime, Sentret made appearances that captured its personality well. It was often shown as timid but curious, sometimes getting itself into trouble by wandering into danger. These portrayals reinforce the image of Sentret as both vulnerable and watchful, a creature that needed its community or a caring trainer to thrive. Furret, too, appeared in various episodes, often depicted as affectionate and playful, further cementing its role as a Pokemon defined by companionship rather than power. Looking back, Sentret may not stand among Johto's most powerful or legendary creatures, but its importance lies in how it framed the early game experience. It gave players a sense of place, introducing them to Johto's themes of community, vigilance, and balance. It reminded them that every journey starts with small, seemingly ordinary steps, and that even the most common Pokemon have stories worth telling. The enduring love for Sentret and Furret in fan culture today is a testament to their design and the emotions they evoked. Whether it's the iconic long Furret walk or the memory of catching one on Route 29, these Pokemon remain tied to feelings of nostalgia, warmth, and the simple joy of starting an adventure. In the broader narrative of Johto, Sentret stands as a symbol of beginnings, of the first wild encounter, and of the comfort found in companionship. It shows that no matter how ordinary a Pokemon may seem, it can leave a lasting impression simply by being part of those first steps into a wider world. As dusk falls over Johto, the atmosphere of the region shifts. The warm daylight, filled with the chirps of Sentret and the bustling of early trainers, slowly gives way to the soft hum of crickets and the cool glow of the moon. It is during this transition that Hoot Hoot makes its presence known, a nocturnal sentinel whose call echoes through forests and fields, signaling the change of day to night. Where Sentret represents the cautious daylight watchman, Hoot Hoot embodies the rhythm of the night, connecting Johto's living world directly to its pioneering day and night system that revolutionized Pokemon gameplay. Introduced in Generation 2, this owl-like creature served as one of the first nighttime encounters many players experienced in Gold and Silver. Its design, simple yet effective, captures the essence of an owl while adding unique traits that make it distinctly Pokemon. Round and stout, with wide red eyes and a comical single-legged stance, Hoot Hoot quickly became a recognizable face for Johto's night cycle. More than just a creature of the dark, It symbolized innovation, as the concept of time influencing the game world was groundbreaking in the late 1990s. From the very start, the developers designed Johto to feel alive, influenced by the passage of real time. Hoot Hoot became the ambassador of this idea, appearing only after sunset. It encouraged players to return to the game at different hours, to experience Johto not just as a static map, but as a living world with its own cycles and patterns. This small change transformed how players connected with the Pokemon world. Instead of every route offering the same encounters at any time of day, Johto demanded patience, observation, and a willingness to step into the unknown hours of the night. The design of Hoot Hoot further reflects this idea of rhythm and time. Its most famous trait is its internal clock, a biological mechanism so precise that it can hoot at the exact same time each day. Pokédex entries describe it as having an organ that works like a metronome, allowing it to keep perfect rhythm. In fact, its two red eyes often alternate blinking in a steady pattern, reinforcing the sense that it embodies timing and balance. For a game built around the revolutionary introduction of real-time gameplay, this design detail was far from accidental. It made Hoot Hoot a living metaphor for Johto's new mechanics. Beyond its symbolic role, Hoot Hoot and its evolution, Noctowl, filled the niche of regional bird Pokemon. Where Kanto had Pidgey and its evolutionary line, Johto brought players an owl with a distinct nocturnal identity. Noctowl was larger, more elegant, and carried an air of wisdom with its sleek feathers and piercing gaze. Unlike many early game birds, which emphasized offensive traits like speed and pecking attacks, Noctowl leaned toward intelligence and support. Its abilities often included hypnosis and moves that disrupted opponents, highlighting strategy over brute strength. In the anime, Hoot Hoot appeared early in the Johto Journey's arc, often shown as helpful guides for travelers navigating forests at night. More memorably, Noctowl took on a starring role as one of Ash's partners. Ash's Noctowl stood out not only because it was shiny, a rare golden coloration that fascinated viewers, but also because it was portrayed as clever, resourceful, and brave. This marked one of the earliest times that a shiny Pokemon appeared prominently in the series, cementing Noctowl's place in fan memory as both special and significant. From a gameplay perspective, encountering Hoot Hoot at night added atmosphere to Johto's routes. The soft hooting sound effect that accompanied its presence blended perfectly with the darker palette of nighttime exploration. Players often recall the sense of wonder at walking through Route 29 or 31 at night, battling this curious little owl, and realizing that the world they were exploring changed depending on when they played. It was an innovation that deepened immersion, turning Pokemon from a static adventure into a living simulation of a breathing world. Hoot Hoot's lore and Pokédex entries also emphasized its mystical qualities. Its ability to sense time so precisely has long sparked speculation about its connection to broader themes in the Pokemon world. Some fans theorize that its precise timing and watchful nature symbolize Johto's focus on balance and cycles, an idea embodied in the legendary beasts and the legendary birds. Noctowl's intelligence adds another layer, as it is described as capable of seeing in complete darkness and even using hypnosis to control or influence others. These details give the line an almost supernatural aura, reinforcing the mystical undercurrent of Johto's design. The owl itself has deep roots in global folklore, often seen as a symbol of wisdom, mystery, or omens, depending on the culture. By introducing an owl Pokemon tied to time and night, Game Freak tapped into this universal symbolism while grounding it in Johto's mechanics. Noctowl, in particular, captured the archetype of the wise, watchful owl, perched silently in forests and watching the world below. In doing so, the games not only expanded the roster of Pokémon, but also enriched the cultural texture of the region. Although Hoot Hoot and Noctowl never became competitive staples, their utility in casual play and their cultural significance kept them beloved among fans. Noctowl's large move pool and decent bulk made it a serviceable team member for trainers who caught it early and chose to keep it. Moves like Hypnosis, Reflect, and Confusion gave it a versatile toolkit, allowing creative strategies even if it wasn't the strongest choice. Many players remember using it to handle early game battles against bug catchers or to provide status support in tougher fights. In later generations, Hoot Hoot continued to appear in various regions, but it always carried its Johto identity. The memory of catching it at night in gold and silver remains one of its defining traits. For players who experienced Johto when it first released, Hoot Hoot was often their first true reminder that this wasn't Kanto anymore. This was a region alive with new mechanics, new rhythms, and new experiences. Its legacy also endures through community love. The image of the round-eyed bird, standing on one leg, remains a favorite among artists and fans, who often highlight its comical yet endearing look. Noctowl, with its elegant design, carries a quieter appeal, remembered fondly as Ash's shiny partner and as one of the earliest representations of wisdom in Pokémon form. Together, the line embodies Johto's emphasis on balance, daytime and nighttime, the ordinary and the mystical, vigilance and wisdom. In the broader story of Johto, Hoot Hoot and its evolution remind us that the region's innovations went beyond just new Pokémon designs. They represented a shift in how players experience the world, weaving time and nature directly into the fabric of gameplay. Just as the owl calls at night to mark the passing hours, these Pokémon marked a new era in the franchise, one where the world felt alive, where the passing of time mattered, and where even a small nocturnal creature could symbolize something revolutionary. Hoot Hoot may not boast legendary power, but its role in shaping the atmosphere and mechanics of Johto cannot be overstated. It stands as a testament to the way even common Pokémon can leave a lasting impact, not just through battles, but through the worlds they help create. For countless players, the soft sound of an owl's call under the Johto night sky remains one of the most comforting and nostalgic memories of their journey. As the first light of morning creeps over the Johto landscape, the soft dew glistens across the tall grass, and the forests awaken to a different rhythm than the night before. Where the nocturnal cries of owls had marked the hours of darkness, the dawn belongs to the gentle flutter of wings. One of the earliest sights a trainer might encounter on a bright Johto morning is the delicate movement of a small, red insect that drifts between flowers, its presence both whimsical and symbolic of the region's emphasis on natural beauty and harmony. This creature, with its round body and cheerful appearance, was designed to embody the sense of renewal that comes with dawn. Unlike the fearsome designs of some insects that appear later in the series, this one radiates a childlike innocence, almost cartoonish in its friendliness. Its dotted wings and wide-eyed expression give it a soft aesthetic, connecting it to themes of companionship and cooperation. Johto, as a region, emphasized connection and community in many ways, and this Pokémon reflected those themes directly in both design and behavior. Known for traveling in swarms, It serves as one of the earliest encounters for trainers venturing beyond New Barktown. Its swarming nature is not merely an artistic flourish, it directly mirrors behaviors seen in real-world insects, particularly ladybugs, which gather in groups for warmth, safety, and navigation. The developers translated this ecological reality into a game mechanic, as Pokédex entries consistently note its reliance on group behavior. It is rarely seen alone, instead moving in large clusters, suggesting that strength for this species lies in numbers rather than in individual power. This swarm behavior also reveals Johto's approach to ecology. Gold and silver introduced not only time, but also seasonal feeling dynamics, and the insect's activity patterns reflected that design. It would appear more frequently in certain conditions, reinforcing the sense that Johto was alive, with cycles and patterns of nature. This wasn't just a fantasy world filled with static creatures, it was a simulation of life itself, with organisms reacting to their environment in believable ways. From a gameplay perspective, encountering this insect early on presented new trainers with unique challenges and opportunities. Its stats were skewed towards speed and special defense, making it surprisingly resilient against certain special attacks, but it lacked the physical strength to deliver decisive blows. This gave players a choice: invest time in nurturing a Pokémon that embodied teamwork and support, or move on to other, stronger options. For many, it served as a stepping stone, but for others, it became a loyal companion, especially once it evolved into a more powerful form with expanded abilities. That evolution, with its larger body and more formidable appearance, represented growth and maturity, a theme carried throughout Johto's designs. Yet even in its final form, it was not known for raw power. Instead, it leaned into support roles, using moves like Light Screen and Reflect to protect allies, or Baton Pass to share stat boosts. In this way, it reflected Johto's greater emphasis on patience, balance, and strategy compared to Kanto's more aggressive, battle-focused designs. Culturally, the design of this Pokémon drew directly from the ladybug, an insect with positive associations in many traditions around the world. In European folklore, ladybugs were seen as omens of good fortune, often tied to agricultural success and the protection of crops. In Japanese culture, where the series originates, ladybugs are associated with the stars, sometimes even called heavenly path bugs, due to their upward flight patterns toward the sky. This celestial imagery finds subtle echoes in the creature's design, with its spotted wings resembling constellations and its swarming behavior evoking the movement of stars across the night sky. Its gentle symbolism also extended into the anime. The species appeared in episodes set in Johto's lush fields, often portrayed as peaceful creatures living in harmony with nature. Trainers used them as helpers rather than fighters, reinforcing their role as symbols of cooperation and kindness. One episode, in particular, depicted swarms of these insects assisting with farming tasks, showing their place not only in battles, but in the daily lives of Johto's people. Such portrayals deepened the sense of Johto as a living, breathing region where Pokémon contributed to society in ways beyond combat. This focus on cooperation was further highlighted through the mechanics of friendship and breeding, both of which were first introduced in Generation 2. The insect's design and behavior tied naturally into these systems, as it represented the idea that bonds and group dynamics could matter just as much as raw strength. Gold and Silver placed a stronger emphasis on the relationships between trainers and their Pokémon, rewarding players for nurturing their companions. The ladybug-inspired creature fit perfectly into this ethos, embodying loyalty, community, and gentle companionship. While not a powerhouse in competitive play, it carved out a niche in specific strategies. Its ability to set up protective barriers for allies made it useful in double battles, and its access to baton pass strategies gave it a role in more tactical formats. Although overshadowed by stronger options, those who chose to use it often found creative ways to highlight its supportive nature. In this way, it became a symbol of unconventional choices, rewarding trainers who valued creativity and strategy over brute force. Beyond mechanics, its legacy lies in how it shaped the emotional tone of early Johto gameplay. Encountering a swarm of these bright red insects in the morning created a sense of calm and beauty, contrasting with the more intimidating encounters of the night. Together with other early game creatures, it painted a picture of a region where life felt balanced between light and dark, day and night, innocence and mystery. Johto was not just a continuation of Kanto, it was a reimagining of what a Pokemon world could feel like. Its design also reflects the softer art direction of Johto compared to the bold, often sharp designs of Kanto. Johto Pokémon tended to embody naturalistic themes, plants, animals, folklore creatures, rendered in a more approachable style. The ladybug-inspired Pokémon epitomized this approach. Round, colorful, and instantly recognizable, appealing to children and longtime fans alike. It represented the new generation's goal of expanding the roster with creatures that felt simultaneously fresh and familiar. In fan culture, this insect remains a favorite for its cuteness and symbolism, even if it is not always celebrated for its battle prowess. Artwork often portrays it in playful or celestial settings, emphasizing its associations with the stars and with good fortune. Its shiny form, featuring orange tones, further adds to its charm, with many trainers hunting for it as a collectible rather than for competitive use. The connection between this Pokemon and themes of luck, friendship, and the sky continues to resonate, making it more memorable than its modest stats might suggest. In reflecting on Johto as a whole, this creature embodies the region's heart. Where Kanto emphasized pioneering the concept of Pokemon itself, Johto refined the experience, weaving in mechanics and designs that deepened the connection between players and the world. The day and night cycle, the introduction of breeding, the emphasis on bonds, all found representation in creatures like this one, whose cooperative nature mirrored the very systems being introduced. It reminded players that strength was not only about power, but also about harmony and trust. Thus, even though it may not dominate battle charts or competitive rankings, the Ladybug-inspired Pokemon has carved out a permanent place in the hearts of fans. It symbolizes the joy of discovery, the beauty of early mornings in Johto, and the emphasis on cooperation that defined Generation 2. To encounter it, fluttering among flowers as the sun rises, is to experience Johto as it was intended, a region alive with cycles of time, filled with creatures that enrich the world in ways both subtle and profound. When the sun dips low over Johto's forests and the air begins to cool, another rhythm of life quietly stirs. While some creatures thrive in the brightness of dawn, others make their presence felt when shadows lengthen and the woods take on a hushed stillness. It is during these twilight hours that one may notice a delicate strand of silk stretched between branches, shimmering faintly in the fading light. This is the domain of one of Johto's smallest but most distinct nocturnal Pokemon, a creature whose quiet persistence and skillful weaving reflect both the mysteries of the forest and the subtler themes that run through the region's design. Introduced early in a trainer's journey, this tiny spider like being was a counterpart to Johto's gentler morning insect, offering players a creature that embodied the night. Its presence underscored the newly introduced day and night system of gold and silver, which was revolutionary for the time. Unlike earlier games where encounters were static regardless of the hour, Johto introduced a living clock, and with it, creatures that embodied different times of day. Just as the ladybug inspired Pokemon represented morning harmony, this web weaver became a symbol of the mysterious and sometimes unsettling tone of nighttime exploration. The creature's design drew heavily from the orb weaver spider, an insect known for constructing intricate webs to ensnare prey. Its round body, patterned with a face-like marking on its back, was both whimsical and slightly eerie, giving it a dual quality that matched its nocturnal identity. The false face pattern was an especially interesting detail, meant to confuse predators and make the otherwise vulnerable insect appear more intimidating than it really was. This kind of mimicry reflects real-world evolutionary strategies, showing how Game Freak often wove biological inspiration into Pokemon design. From a gameplay perspective, the Spider Pokemon offered trainers an early chance to experiment with status moves. It learned String Shot, a move that reduced speed, and later Poison Sting, a move that carried the potential to inflict a status condition. Though not especially powerful, these moves introduced players to strategic concepts beyond raw damage. Johto as a region was designed to be slightly slower paced and more tactical than Kanto, and the addition of such Pokemon reinforced that philosophy. Battles weren't always about knocking out opponents as fast as possible. Sometimes they were about patience, attrition, and smart use of abilities. The evolution of this small spider into a larger, more menacing form reflected growth not only in size but in tone. Where its unevolved state appeared harmless, even cute, its evolution became more predatory, resembling a tarantula-like creature with sharper features. This mirrored the natural shift from childhood innocence to maturity, a recurring theme in Johto's design philosophy. In the same way that trainers grew in skill and confidence as they advanced through the region, the Pokemon they encountered evolved in parallel, moving from whimsical designs to more formidable presences. What is particularly notable about this spider line is its association with the nighttime atmosphere of Johto's forests. Wandering through areas like Ilex Forest after dark, players would encounter webs strung between trees and the eerie silence punctuated by rustling leaves. The small spider reinforced that sensation, making the nighttime feel alive with creatures suited to the shadows. The choice to introduce Pokemon tied explicitly to the time of day made Johto feel like a more immersive world, one where the hour mattered and nature followed its own rhythm. In cultural terms, spiders have always occupied a dual role in folklore. On one hand, they are symbols of patience, skill, and creativity, admired for the delicate beauty of their webs. On the other, they evoke fear and discomfort, tied to ideas of lurking danger. The Johto spider embodies both sides of this duality. Its smaller form leaned toward the whimsical, with bright green coloring and cartoonish eyes, while its evolved form leaned toward the threatening. In this way, it reflected humanity's mixed feelings toward spiders, balancing charm with menace. The anime further reinforced these themes. This particular Pokemon was often portrayed as a helpful companion, using its webs to assist with tasks or to stop troublemakers. Its silk was shown as strong and versatile, capable of restraining much larger opponents. Yet its presence at night also played into its eerie associations, with glowing eyes in the darkness and sudden movements from the treetops. This dual portrayal reflected the same balance seen in folklore, spiders as both helpers and sources of unease. Mechanically, the species was never known for dominating battles, but it offered niche roles, with access to moves like spiderweb, which prevented opponents from fleeing or switching. It could trap foes in battle, mirroring the way real spiders trap prey. This ability gave it a unique identity, making it more than just another early game insect. Later generations would give spiders even more emphasis in Pokemon design, but this Johto native laid the foundation by introducing the concept of entrapment and control into battles. An interesting detail about its web is that Pokédex entries frequently emphasize how sticky and strong it is, able to stop even small birds in their tracks. This again reflects real-world biology, where orb weaver webs can restrain surprisingly large prey relative to the spider's size. By incorporating such realistic details, the developers highlighted the connection between Pokemon and natural ecology, grounding the fantasy in believability. Players might not consciously think of real spiders when encountering this Pokemon, but the biological authenticity helped make Johto's world feel richer and more alive. Its shiny form, featuring purple tones instead of green, added another layer of intrigue. While many shinies in Generation 2 were subtle palette swaps, the spider's shiny gave it a distinct and memorable look. For shiny hunters, finding one became a reward, not only for rarity, but for the aesthetic novelty it brought. Given its nocturnal associations, encountering a shiny in the dim light of Johto's forests could feel particularly magical, as though stumbling upon something rare and mystical in the shadows. This Pokemon also reflected broader design trends in Johto, where Kanto leaned heavily into iconic archetypes: dragons, legendary birds, electric mice. Johto often favored subtler creatures tied to real-world ecosystems. The region was inspired by rural Japanese landscapes, with forests, mountains, and farmland dominating its geography. The spider fit naturally into this setting, emphasizing the untamed, sometimes eerie qualities of Johto's wilderness. Rather than relying on spectacle, Johto invited players to appreciate the quieter, more atmospheric aspects of its world. Another notable aspect is how it balanced with its counterpart from morning hours. Trainers who played primarily during the day were more likely to encounter the ladybug-like insect, while those who played at night found the spider. This created a natural sense of divergence between playstyles, reinforcing the idea that different trainers might have different journeys based on when they explored. It also encouraged trading and conversation between players, a central theme of the series as a whole. By tying certain Pokemon to specific times, Johto deepened the social dimension of the games. In the grand scheme of Johto, this nocturnal spider may not be the most powerful or iconic creature, but it serves as an important piece of the region's identity. It highlights the innovation of the day and night system, embodies the dual cultural symbolism of spiders, and introduces strategic mechanics like trapping and status reliance. Its design bridges whimsy and eeriness, reflecting Johto's overall balance between harmony and mystery. For fans, its legacy often lies in its atmosphere. To this day, players remember wandering Johto's forests at night, the screen bathed in darker tones, and encountering the quiet, unassuming spider among the trees. The memory of those early battles is less about strength or utility and more about the feeling of inhabiting a living world where creatures truly belonged to their environments. In that sense, it played a vital role in making Johto feel like more than a game. It felt like a place where time, nature, and mystery flowed together. And so, the Spider of Johto, though small and often overlooked, remains a symbol of the region's depth. It taught trainers patience, strategy, and the importance of time, while also weaving threads of folklore and ecology into the game's design. It may not shine as brightly as the legendaries or dominate as fiercely as the powerhouses, but in the quiet hours of Johto's nights, its presence is unforgettable. In the caves and shadowed corridors of Johto, there exists a creature whose very presence tells a story of growth and patience. This Pokemon was not introduced as something entirely new, but as an extension of something players had already known from Kanto, the ever-present bat that lurked in every cave. For many, encountering those bats was a rite of passage, a constant reminder that the caves were not empty corridors, but ecosystems alive with flapping wings. But in Johto, a twist awaited. Those same bats, if given enough time and care, could grow into something entirely unexpected, a sleek and powerful evolution that completely redefined how players thought of the species. This was one of the most important design decisions in Gold and Silver, the addition of new evolutions to existing Pokemon. The development team wanted Johto to feel like a region that built upon the foundation of Kanto while introducing new surprises. By giving old creatures new forms, they reinforced the idea that growth is continuous, that even something overlooked or dismissed could transform into something extraordinary. This was especially true for the bat line. In Kanto, the species was notorious for being weak and annoying, its most recognizable trait being the constant interruptions it caused as players explored caves. But in Johto, with enough loyalty to its trainer, it blossomed into a powerhouse with speed and grace that rivaled many of the best Pokemon in the region. The method of reaching this final form was itself a statement about Johto's themes. Unlike evolutions that depended on level or stone, this one required happiness, a hidden value based on how much time a trainer spent caring for their partner. Every step, every battle without fainting, every item of healing used added to that unseen bond. It was a gentle way of teaching players that Pokemon were not just tools for battle, but companions who thrived on attention and kindness. Johto as a region leaned heavily into this philosophy, as seen in the introduction of features like breeding, the friendship mechanic, and events that emphasized bonds between trainer and Pokemon. The evolution of the bat line into its sleek final form stood as one of the clearest examples of this theme in action. When fully grown, this creature was a complete reversal of its earlier image. No longer clumsy and slow, it became incredibly fast, one of the swiftest in the entire Johto Pokédex. With 2 additional wings, its design emphasized speed and agility, suggesting a mastery of aerial maneuvering that its earlier forms could never hope to achieve. This was a deliberate design choice, turning something that had been seen as a nuisance into something admired and respected. It reminded players that patience and loyalty could unlock hidden potential, a message that resonated with the broader themes of growth and perseverance in the games. The design itself carried subtle storytelling. Where its earlier form had a jagged, almost awkward look, the fully evolved version had a sleek, aerodynamic body with long, pointed wings that gave it a menacing elegance. Its dual set of wings was especially striking, setting it apart from any real-world bat species and hinting at supernatural speed. This shift in appearance mirrored the shift in perception. What was once an annoyance became a symbol of dedication, a reward for players who chose to stick with what many others abandoned. From a gameplay perspective, this Pokemon offered a unique set of tools. Its blinding speed allowed it to act before nearly any opponent, making it a reliable disruptor in battle. Moves like Confuse Ray, Toxic, and Substitute emphasize strategy over brute strength, giving players opportunities to outlast stronger opponents through clever play. The bat's role was often that of a tactical nuisance turned weapon, using its agility to chip away at foes or prevent them from acting. This matched perfectly with the thematic redemption arc of the species, from nuisance in caves to a respected battle partner when raised with care. What's especially fascinating is how this evolution influenced the cultural perception of the bat line as a whole. In Kanto, players dreaded encountering the earlier form. By introducing a rewarding final stage in Johto, Game Freak recontextualized those encounters. Suddenly, catching one early in the game was not just an inconvenience, it was a potential investment. Those who remembered their frustrations in Kanto now had a reason to give the creature a second chance, making the evolution both a narrative and mechanical redemption. The anime reflected this shift as well. One of the main characters in the Johto seasons was given a Crobat as a way to showcase its potential, highlighting its speed and loyalty. This reinforced to fans that the species was not just filler, but had a real place in the world of Pokemon. Seeing it in action, darting across the screen faster than most opponents could follow, cemented its image as a capable and admirable companion. Symbolically, the bat's reliance on happiness for evolution tied it to Johto's broader cultural inspirations. The region, modeled after the Kansai area of Japan, emphasized themes of harmony and bonds with nature. By making certain Pokemon reliant on intangible concepts like friendship, the developers highlighted values that extended beyond mechanics. It was not just about grinding levels, but about forming genuine connections. The sleek bat epitomized this, showing that love and care could elevate even the most maligned creatures into something extraordinary. In competitive play, its legacy continued well beyond Johto. For years, it maintained a niche as one of the fastest utility Pokemon, valued for its ability to shut down opponents before they could act. Its presence reminded players of the importance of speed, strategy, and persistence. While it may not have always been the most powerful attacker, it carved out a unique role as a supportive disruptor, just as it carved out a unique narrative in the broader story of Pokemon. A detail worth noting is its shiny form, with green wings replacing the usual purple. This alternate coloration gave it a strikingly different appearance, one that stood out vividly in battle. For shiny hunters, this made it a particularly rewarding find, as the stark color change emphasized the rarity and uniqueness of the encounter. Seeing those green wings flutter in the darkness of a cave or in the bright lights of battle carried a sense of triumph, reinforcing the theme of patience and reward that defined the Pokemon itself. Beyond the mechanics and design, Crobat also represents a deeper theme in Johto, the idea of second chances. Many players' first experiences with its pre-evolved form were frustrating, filled with constant interruptions. But Johto asked players to look again, to reconsider what they thought they knew, and to discover hidden worth in what seemed unremarkable. This message that patience and kindness can reveal potential in even the most overlooked beings is central not only to the bat's story, but to the spirit of Johto as a whole. And so, the journey from annoyance to admiration tells us much about the heart of the Johto games. By evolving through happiness, the bat symbolized the bond between trainer and Pokemon. By transforming into one of the fastest and most elegant creatures in the region, it showcased the rewards of persistence. And by recontextualizing something once dismissed, it reminded players to look deeper, to find value where they might not expect it. In the quiet darkness of Johto's caves, the flutter of wings may begin as a nuisance, but with time and care, it can become a symbol of loyalty, speed, and redemption. Among the many discoveries trainers made in Johto, one stood out as especially magical: the realization that bonds could shape destiny in new and unexpected ways. Where before, growth had often relied on physical items or reaching specific levels, the Johto region introduced something subtler, more personal evolution through trust. And from that concept emerged a radiant, feline figure that embodied elegance, loyalty, and psychic power. This creature was not simply a new evolution, it was a statement about the importance of friendship, and it became one of the most beloved Pokémon of the generation. Its design immediately set it apart. Sleek and graceful, with a body resembling a feline, it exuded agility and poise. Its lavender coloring carried a soft, mystical quality, while its forked tail and jewel-like gem on its forehead hinted at supernatural abilities. Every part of its design seemed deliberate, a creature meant to symbolize light, intellect, and clairvoyance. Where some evolutions leaned into brute force or intimidating appearances, this one leaned into elegance and serenity. It was meant to inspire awe rather than fear. The method of achieving this evolution reflected Johto's focus on the unseen bonds between trainer and partner. To unlock this form, a trainer had to raise a certain Pokemon's happiness during the day. This was one of the first times that time of day played a direct role in evolution, tying mechanics to the real-world clock and immersing players more deeply in their journey. The distinction between day and night emphasized balance, and this form represented the daytime counterpart to its dark sibling, Umbreon. Where Umbreon thrived in shadows, this one shone in the light, embodying duality within Johto's design philosophy. The symbolism here runs deep. By evolving only when its trainer showed consistent care during daylight hours, the creature represented clarity, honesty, and foresight. The developers intended it to be a reflection of the sun's reliability and the trust that grows strongest in light. In Japanese mythology, sunlight and celestial energy often symbolize purity and enlightenment, and this Pokemon's connection to psychic powers tied it neatly into that cultural framework. It was not merely an animal transformed by friendship, it was a spiritual partner that resonated with larger themes of balance and harmony. From a gameplay perspective, its strengths lay in speed and special attack. In the context of Johto, this made it one of the premier psychic types of the region, a role once dominated almost exclusively by earlier species like Alakazam. With access to moves like Psychic and Reflect, it filled both offensive and supportive roles, adapting to the player's needs. Its power curve rewarded players who invested in their friendship system, offering a tangible reward for patience and care. And unlike some other evolutions that relied on items or trades, this one felt more personal, as if the trainer had truly earned it through their relationship with their Pokémon. The anime highlighted this bond as well. In various episodes, the elegant psychic cat was often depicted as deeply loyal, using its abilities not just for battle, but also to protect and guide its trainer. Its clairvoyant powers made it seem almost empathic, capable of understanding emotions and responding to unspoken feelings. This portrayal reinforced the theme of trust, showing that it wasn't just about power, but about the spiritual connection between human and Pokemon. The psychic type itself carried significance in Johto. While Kanto had introduced the type as overwhelmingly powerful, Johto balanced it with new mechanics like dark types and steel types. Yet this particular evolution still stood strong, symbolizing that psychic power, when paired with loyalty and light, was still among the most formidable forces in the Pokemon world. Its presence helped establish psychic types as more than just powerhouses. They could also be graceful, elegant companions who embodied deeper themes of connection. A detail that often fascinates players is the gemstone embedded in its forehead. This design choice wasn't merely aesthetic, it tied into lore, suggesting the creature could channel psychic energy through the jewel, even predicting opponents' moves. This concept echoed real-world myths about third eyes or forehead gems, symbolizing heightened perception. In this sense, the Pokemon represented wisdom and foresight, abilities cultivated through harmony rather than conflict. Shiny hunters found an additional layer of appeal in this evolution. Its shiny coloration shifted its normally lavender fur into a striking lime green, a dramatic and almost alien look compared to its standard form. This made it one of the most eye-catching shinies in Johto. For those who managed to find it, the contrast emphasized its mystical qualities, as though the bond with their partner had produced something even rarer and more extraordinary. What's especially notable about this Pokemon is how it reshaped the legacy of its pre-evolution. Eevee, known for its many branching possibilities, became the ultimate example of player choice. By introducing forms based on happiness and time of day, Johto expanded the possibilities even further, ensuring that each player's journey felt personal. Choosing to evolve into the psychic cat during the day became a reflection of the player's style, someone who valued foresight, elegance, and light. This mirrored Johto's emphasis on individuality and bonds, reinforcing the idea that no two journeys were exactly alike. From a cultural perspective, this evolution carried subtle influences from folklore. Cats, in many traditions, are considered mystical creatures, often linked with intuition or the supernatural. By combining feline design with psychic power and a celestial motif, the developers created something that felt both familiar and otherworldly. It was a perfect blend of myth and modern design philosophy, aligning with Johto's broader themes of blending tradition with innovation. In competitive play across later generations, this Pokemon found a niche with abilities like Magic Bounce, which reflected status moves back at opponents. This reinforced its identity as a guardian of light, one who could protect allies by turning opponents' tricks against them. Even years after Johto, its role continued to embody elegance and utility, showing the staying power of its design. Perhaps the most striking thing about this psychic evolution is how much it contrasts with its dark sibling, Umbreon. Together, the two formed one of the most iconic dualities in the franchise: light and dark, day and night, sun and moon, foresight and secrecy. Their existence side by side reflected Johto's balance-driven philosophy. Trainers could choose which path suited them better, and both options were rooted in trust and friendship. This choice emphasized the depth of Johto's gameplay, giving meaning to not just what Pokemon players raised, but how they raised them. In many ways, the Radiant Psychic Cat represents the best of Johto's storytelling through design. It takes a mechanic happiness and transforms it into a narrative tool. It takes a theme light and foresight and makes it tangible in battle. It takes an overlooked pre-evolution and elevates it into something majestic. It is both a reward for patience and a reflection of the player's journey. And in its sleek form and psychic elegance, it stands as a reminder of how bonds can create something extraordinary. To this day, fans remember their first time unlocking this evolution. Whether it was the thrill of seeing that happiness mechanic finally pay off, or the awe of witnessing its elegance in action, the experience left an impression that has lasted across generations. In the quiet warmth of Johto's daylight, where trust and care shine brightest, this creature stands as a symbol of loyalty, grace, and the magic that happens when friendship becomes something more. Where light and day gave rise to one path of evolution, the quiet of night unveiled another one, cloaked in mystery, patience, and shadows. Umbreon emerged as the lunar counterpart to its radiant sibling, embodying Johto's fascination with balance and duality. Unlike the elegant psychic feline of daylight, this evolution thrived under the cover of darkness, becoming one of the most iconic and beloved dark types in the entire franchise. Its presence cemented the idea that Pokémon could evolve not just through tangible items, but through atmosphere, trust, and time itself. Design played a central role in its allure. Umbreon's sleek, jet-black fur provided an immediate contrast to the brightness of its counterpart. But it wasn't merely a dark color palette. It was accented by glowing yellow rings on its body, designed to shimmer under moonlight. This detail gave the impression of a creature both hidden and luminous, an enigma that existed comfortably between shadow and light. In Japanese folklore, animals tied to the moon were often symbols of mystery and endurance, and Umbreon carried that legacy through its design. Its red eyes, piercing in the dark, added to the sense of both menace and majesty. The conditions for its evolution mirrored the philosophy of patience and subtlety. To achieve Umbreon, a trainer had to raise their companion's happiness just as they would for its daytime sibling, but the transformation would only occur under the cover of night. This time-of-day mechanic tied gameplay to the rhythms of the real world in a way that felt revolutionary at the time. It wasn't enough to build trust, you also had to align it with the quiet patience of evening, teaching players that timing mattered as much as care. For many trainers, discovering this mechanic for the first time was magical, an unexpected moment of reward for simply journeying with a partner when the world outside had gone dark. Umbreon introduced fans to the dark type in a profound way. In fact, Johto was the first region to feature this typing, which had been created to balance the dominance of psychic Pokémon from the first generation. Where psychic types once reigned unchecked, dark types introduced a counterbalance rooted in clever strategy and resilience. Umbreon epitomized this new dynamic, excelling not through raw offensive power, but through defensive mastery. It was a Pokémon that won battles by outlasting opponents, using high defenses, status moves, and patience to wear rivals down. In this way, it embodied the philosophy of night waiting, enduring, and striking at the right moment. Its role in battles quickly became iconic. Umbreon was not about flashy knockouts, but about persistence. Moves like Toxic, Protect, and Confuse. Ray allowed it to frustrate opponents, forcing them into mistakes or gradual defeat. It became a cornerstone of defensive strategies, teaching players that battles could be won not just through offense, but also through clever endurance. This was a new style of gameplay for many, and it reflected Umbreon's personality, steady, quiet, and powerful in its restraint. The anime depicted Umbreon in similarly elegant fashion. Trainers who owned one were often portrayed as calm, composed individuals, reflecting the Pokémon's steady demeanor. Its glowing rings made it one of the most visually striking creatures in the dark, reinforcing its mystical nature. The depiction often leaned into loyalty, showing Umbreon as fiercely protective of its trainer, willing to stand as a shield even against overwhelming odds. Where some Pokemon embodied chaos or unpredictability, Umbreon was about control, stability, and unwavering presence. Lore within the Pokédex added another layer of mystique. Descriptions often mentioned how its rings glowed in the dark when it was excited or ready to strike. Some entries suggested that the glow could unsettle or intimidate opponents, adding psychological warfare to its toolkit. Others implied it was tied deeply to moonlight, with its body absorbing lunar energy to fuel its strength. These elements connected Umbreon to natural cycles, suggesting it was not simply a creature of darkness, but one tied directly to celestial rhythms. The popularity of Umbreon skyrocketed quickly after its introduction, and it remains one of the most celebrated evolutions even decades later. Its striking design, combined with its unique playstyle and connection to trust mechanics, made it unforgettable. Players who raised one often remember the moment vividly, the surprise of their Eevee glowing not under the sun, but under the stars, and emerging as something sleek, mysterious, and powerful. In terms of symbolism, Umbreon embodies much of Johto's thematic focus. The region often explored contrasts day and night, tradition and progress, light and dark. Umbreon's relationship with Espeon highlighted this duality perfectly. Where Espeon symbolized clarity and foresight, Umbreon represented secrecy and resilience. Together, they embodied the philosophy of yin and yang, two forces that seemed opposite yet were deeply interconnected. The fact that both required trust to achieve only reinforced Johto's message that bonds mattered above all else, regardless of the form they took. Shiny hunters found Umbreon to be especially appealing. Unlike the bright lime green of its counterpart, Umbreon's shiny swapped its golden rings for a striking blue. This subtle but beautiful change made it one of the most sought-after shinies in the game. The blue rings against black fur gave it a cold, otherworldly elegance, enhancing its reputation as one of the most visually stunning Pokémon in existence. Over time, Umbreon also carved out a niche in competitive battles beyond Johto. Its defensive capabilities and ability to shut down status effects made it a staple on many teams. Moves like Wish and Heal Bell allowed it to support allies, while its sheer durability ensured it remained standing when many others fell. This reputation as both a shield and a strategist cemented its place not only as a fan favorite, but also as a respected figure in the battling community. Culturally, Umbreon resonates with universal fascination for the night. Across traditions, darkness is often seen as mysterious, dangerous, or sacred. Umbreon's design leaned into that allure, transforming shadows into a symbol of power rather than fear. It was not an embodiment of evil, but of endurance and quiet strength, showing that darkness had its own dignity and purpose. In doing so, it balanced the narrative of Pokémon, ensuring that light and dark could coexist without one overshadowing the other. Fans often reflect fondly on the experience of discovering Umbreon for the first time. Some remember being confused about how to obtain it, only to stumble upon the answer late at night while bonding with their Eevee. Others recall its glowing rings shimmering across their handheld screen in the dark, creating an almost cinematic moment of wonder. These memories underscore just how deeply Umbreon's design connected with players, not just as a battle partner, but as an experience. Even today, Umbreon continues to be celebrated in merchandise, fan art, and competitive play. Its sleek silhouette, glowing patterns, and reputation as a trusted companion have made it one of the enduring icons of the series. And at the heart of it all lies Johto's central message that patience, trust, and care reveal the most extraordinary transformations. Umbreon stands as the guardian of night within Johto's legacy, a creature that thrives where others falter, whose strength comes not from brute force, but from loyalty and endurance. Together with its luminous sibling, it shows that true power can take many forms. In the quiet stillness of the evening, under the watch of the moon, Umbreon shines in its own way, subtle, mysterious, and unforgettable. Among the many unusual creatures that Johto introduced, one stood apart for its peculiar mixture of wisdom, comedy, and mystery. Slowking was more than just another evolution. It was a Pokémon that challenged expectations of what transformation could mean. Where its predecessors were known for laziness and obliviousness, this regal form emerged as a creature of intelligence, dignity, and even authority. Yet, beneath that newfound brilliance, it retained the peculiar charm of its lineage, embodying Johto's balance of the serious and the whimsical. To understand Slowking's uniqueness, it helps to look back at its evolutionary family. In Kanto, Slowpoke was portrayed as one of the most absent-minded Pokémon, known for its vacant stare and delayed reactions. Evolution into Slowbro didn't change this image much. It simply added a symbiotic partner in the form of a shelter clamped onto its tail, which spurred Slowpoke into new abilities, but not necessarily greater intelligence. But in Johto, a twist was introduced. What if that shelter latched onto its head instead of its tail? Suddenly, the result was something very different. A Pokémon that went from clueless to wise, silly to scholarly, slow to thoughtful. Design reflected this transformation clearly. Slowking carried itself upright, unlike its hunched relatives. Around its head rested a shelter that resembled a crown, immediately giving it a regal, almost monarch-like aura. Its posture, thoughtful eyes, and even its calm smile reinforced the sense of intelligence and composure. Yet the comical origins of its crown, a mere bite from a clam-like creature, kept it tied to Pokémon's trademark humor. It was simultaneously majestic and ridiculous, a creature both laughed at and respected. The lore around its intelligence was perhaps the most striking. Pokédex entries described how venom from the shelter bite stimulated its brain, unlocking wisdom far beyond human understanding. In some versions, it was said to be able to solve any problem instantly. Others suggested it could understand languages or even carry knowledge that rivaled human scholars. This sudden leap in intelligence gave Slowking a mystique that few other Pokémon shared. Was it a Pokémon, or was it a philosopher cloaked in a pink and gray body? The ambiguity only deepened its appeal, yet the humor was never forgotten. Some stories claimed that if the shelter ever detached, Slowking would instantly revert to its previous state of dim-wittedness. This idea highlighted the fragile and comedic balance of its wisdom. It was not innate, but entirely dependent on a quirky partnership. Players and fans loved this detail, as it kept Slowking from becoming too self-serious. For every line of wisdom, there was the lingering possibility of a return to silliness, keeping it firmly within Pokémon's light-hearted world. Mechanically, Slowking offered a new way to play. It was a psychic and water type like its relative, but instead of leaning toward physical endurance, it emphasized special defense and special attack. This distinction gave players a choice: Slowbro for sturdiness, or Slowking for a more calculated, cerebral approach. It reflected their personalities perfectly, one tough and oblivious, the other clever and composed. Trainers often had to decide not just which stats spread suited their team, but which personality they wanted by their side. The method of evolution added another layer of intrigue. Unlike the straightforward leveling of many Pokemon, obtaining a Slowking required a trade while holding a special item, the King's Rock. This item was already steeped in lore, as it could also cause Slowpoke to evolve into Slowbro under different circumstances. Its use in creating Slowking highlighted the idea that evolution wasn't just about strength, but about how bonds and circumstances shaped outcomes. For many players, discovering that their goofy Slowpoke could turn into something resembling a monarch was a delightful surprise. Slowking also became one of the few Pokemon to feature prominently in the anime movies. In Pokemon the Movie 2000, it was given a speaking role, voiced with a calm, almost royal demeanor. This was a rarity. Few Pokemon were ever portrayed as capable of human speech without psychic telepathy. Its role as a kind of sage commentator during the chaos of legendary clashes gave it an aura of wisdom beyond that of ordinary creatures. For many fans, this appearance cemented Slowking as something special, bridging the gap between comic relief and serious authority. Its duality was what made it so memorable. On one hand, it could sit idly, staring at the sea, drooling absent-mindedly. On the other, it could deliver lines of deep insight or clever strategy. This strange blend echoed the very nature of Johto itself, a region steeped in ancient wisdom, temples, and traditions, but also filled with quirky details, modern innovations, and playful contradictions. Slowking embodied that balance perfectly, making it a quintessential Johto Pokémon. In competitive play, Slowking's role was somewhat niche, but valuable. Its high special defense made it an excellent counter to powerful special attackers, while its psychic and water typing allowed it to switch into a variety of threats. Moves like Calm Mind, Slack Off, and Scald let it wear down opponents while outlasting them. Though not always the star of a team, it was a reliable support that exemplified patience and clever planning, much like its personality. The lore of Johto leaned heavily into themes of wisdom, tradition, and the passage of knowledge, and Slowking fit this thematic current beautifully. Its crown-like shelter tied it to imagery of royalty and leadership, while its newfound intellect made it a natural symbol of learning. In a region where towers stood tall as places of meditation and study, and where legendaries were tied to spiritual significance, Slowking served as a smaller but equally symbolic figure of enlightenment. One of the more intriguing interpretations among fans is the metaphorical nature of Slowking's story. The idea that a sudden external change could unlock inner brilliance resonated with players. It symbolized the notion that everyone carries potential within them, waiting for the right spark, the right moment, to bring it out. That this spark came from something as silly as a clam biting a head only made it more relatable. Greatness can come from the most unexpected circumstances. Visually, Slowking's shiny form added another touch of uniqueness. Instead of its usual soft pink, its body turned a pale, almost golden shade. The change accentuated its regal theme, making it look even more majestic, while still retaining its comedic origins. For shiny hunters, obtaining one became a badge of honor, a way to showcase both dedication and appreciation for one of Johto's strangest but most fascinating Pokemon. Beyond mechanics and lore, Slowking left an impression because it represented a new storytelling direction. It was one of the first Pokemon to show that evolution wasn't just about physical growth, but about personality, circumstance, and even humor. This expanded the way players thought about their partners, encouraging them to wonder not just about what a Pokemon looked like, but what it meant when it evolved. In the grand tapestry of Johto, Slowking remains a testament to creativity. It showed that Pokemon could be wise without being solemn, funny without being shallow, and regal without being untouchable. It was a monarch born from a joke, a philosopher sparked by a bite, a guardian of knowledge that still drooled at the shoreline. Its contradictions made it whole, and those contradictions are what fans continue to love. Slowking reminds us that wisdom doesn't have to be serious to be valuable, that intelligence can coexist with humor, and that even the silliest beginnings can lead to profound transformations. In this way, it embodies not only the spirit of Johto, but also the spirit of the franchise itself, a blend of laughter, wonder, and discovery, where the unexpected is always just around the corner. Among the legendary beings that define Johto's mythos, few figures loom as large as Ho-Oh. Known as the Rainbow Bird, its role in shaping the culture, architecture, and legends of the region cannot be overstated. From the very first moment players stepped into Ekrutik City and saw the towering pagoda structures, they were stepping into an environment deliberately tied to the lore of this fiery guardian. Unlike many legendaries whose presence is kept subtle until late-game encounters, Ho-Oh's existence saturates Johto from the very beginning, acting as a kind of cultural heartbeat for the entire region. The story begins with the two great towers of Ekrutik, the Brass Tower and the Bell Tower. Centuries before the events of the games, the Brass Tower was said to have been the resting place of Lugia, while Ho-Oh chose the Bell Tower as its own perch. These two great birds coexisted as counterparts, each representing different forces of nature and balance. But when the Brass Tower was struck by lightning and burned to the ground, the balance was disrupted. From the ashes, 3 creatures perished, only to be resurrected by the Rainbow Bird, becoming the legendary beasts that now roam Johto Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. This one event, though told in fragments throughout the game, forms the bedrock of Johto mythology. Ho-Oh is not only a legendary being in terms of strength, but also in its role as a literal bringer of life. What makes this tale fascinating is how it ties into broader themes of death, rebirth, and the cycle of nature, which are woven into Johto's design. Many scholars of the Pokemon world point out that the resurrection of the beasts mirrors real-world mythologies, where divine birds or phoenix-like creatures breathe life into fallen heroes or gods. Ho-Oh, with its rainbow plumage and phoenix inspiration, is one of the clearest examples of Game Freak pulling from global folklore and adapting it into Pokemon's unique mythos. Unlike Lugia, who is tied to the deep seas and storms, Ho-Oh radiates color, warmth, and optimism after tragedy, just as a rainbow appears after a storm. In terms of gameplay, encountering this legendary in the original Gold version felt like a culmination of everything a trainer had experienced up until that point. The climb up the bell tower was arduous, filled with monks who spoke reverently of the guardian at the top. The atmosphere of the tower was deliberately designed to slow the player down, to give weight to the moment. And when the Rainbow Bird finally appeared, glowing with its signature palette of reds, greens, and golds, it felt less like just another battle and more like an audience with a god. For many players, this was their first time realizing that the world of Pokemon wasn't just about catching creatures, it was about being immersed in a living mythology. Culturally, Ho-Oh represents hope and renewal, and this theme carries through multiple aspects of Johto. Even the use of the Rainbow Wing, an item obtained late in the game, emphasizes the rarity and sacredness of this encounter. Only those deemed worthy are allowed to hold such an artifact. It reinforces the idea that Ho-Oh is selective, appearing only before those it recognizes as pure of heart. This moral dimension to legendary Pokemon adds depth that goes beyond type advantages or statistics. It creates a sense of reverence that players often carry long after finishing the game. An often overlooked detail is how Ho-Oh bridges the gap between Johto and Kanto. In Pokemon Crystal and later adaptations, the rainbow bird makes cameo appearances in the skies above Kanto, linking both regions not only geographically but spiritually. This subtle nod ties the world together, suggesting that these beings are not confined to single regions, but serve as universal guardians whose influence stretches far wider than a single city or tower. In the anime, Ho-Oh's significance skyrocketed thanks to its appearance in the very first episode. Ash Ketchum's encounter with the rainbow bird as he sets off on his journey established the idea that this creature was something truly extraordinary. For years, fans speculated wildly about what that mysterious bird was, as it appeared long before Gold and Silver were even released. In hindsight, this was one of the most brilliant teases in gaming history. Game Freak and the anime writers effectively introduced a new legendary years before its game debut, planting seeds of curiosity and excitement that made Johto's eventual reveal even more impactful. From a design perspective, Ho-Oh embodies a careful blending of cultural motifs. Its phoenix inspiration is obvious, but the rainbow element ties it uniquely to Pokemon. The rainbow in Japanese culture often represents both luck and the connection between heaven and earth. By perching atop a tower and showing itself only after significant effort, Ho-Oh serves as a literal bridge between the mortal and the divine. Even its ability to resurrect the legendary beasts ties directly into this symbolism. Rainbows appear after storms, and new life appears after tragedy. Mechanically, Ho-Oh has always stood apart in battle. Known for its high stats and powerful moves like Sacred Fire, it serves as both a narrative and gameplay reward. Sacred Fire, in particular, was unique, not just for its high damage, but for its chance to inflict burn, making it one of the strongest signature moves at the time. Trainers who managed to catch Ho-Oh were rewarded with both a powerhouse and a living symbol of the game's lore. This dual-function mythic importance, combined with competitive utility, cemented it as one of the most memorable legendaries in the franchise. The Rainbow Bird's importance continued into later generations. In remakes like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the Bell Tower sequence was expanded upon, making the encounter even more atmospheric. Improved graphics, music, and dialogue added layers of reverence that captured the original intent while modernizing it for new audiences. The fact that Ho-Oh remains such a central figure in the remakes shows just how timeless its role in Johto mythology truly is. Unlike many legendaries who fade into obscurity after their debut, Ho-Oh has remained iconic, largely because its symbolism transcends the game itself. Even today, discussions about the most iconic Pokemon almost always include this fiery guardian. While Pikachu might be the mascot and Mewtwo the symbol of raw power, Ho-Oh represents something subtler but equally important: the spiritual and cultural depth that Pokemon is capable of achieving. Its presence demonstrates that this franchise is not only about battles and training, but also about myth-making and storytelling that resonate on a human level. Ultimately, Ho-Oh's legacy is one of resilience, rebirth, and wonder. Whether perched atop the bell tower, soaring across the skies of Kanto, or appearing in the anime as a harbinger of adventure. This rainbow guardian reminds trainers that beauty and hope can emerge even from destruction. For players journeying through Johto, encountering it is less about adding another name to the Pokédex and more about being part of a living legend. In the mythology of Johto, fire takes on many forms. There is the radiant rebirth brought by the Rainbow Guardian, the eternal flames preserved by monks in Ekrutik, and then there is the raw, untamed blaze represented by Entei. Unlike the phoenix of the bell tower, which symbolizes renewal and harmony, this beast embodies something far more primal, the relentless force of fire itself, destructive yet awe-inspiring. According to legend, Entei was born from the ashes of the brass tower when it burned to the ground. Alongside two other creatures, it perished in the conflagration, only to be brought back by the Rainbow Guardian's divine power. Each of the three resurrected beasts came to represent an element of the tragedy: lightning, rain, and flames. Entei, with its volcanic roar, came to embody the fire that consumed the tower. This origin sets it apart as a living reminder of both destruction and the possibility of renewal. What makes this legend compelling is how seamlessly it ties into the broader architecture and atmosphere of Johto. Ekrutik is steeped in reverence for the past, its towers serving as monuments to balance and memory. By linking Entei directly to the fire that once consumed one of those towers, the designers gave it a permanent role in the region's cultural identity. It is not just a wandering beast, it is a manifestation of history itself. In the games, the encounter with Entei stands out as one of the most unique and frustrating mechanics of the second generation. The roaming legendary system. Instead of waiting patiently atop a tower like the Rainbow Guardian, this beast races across the Johto region, appearing randomly in tall grass after being unleashed. For players, this meant countless hours of chasing, tracking, and strategizing to even land a battle. The moment it appeared was thrilling, but just as quickly it would flee, leaving trainers scrambling to find it again. This mechanic cemented its reputation as one of the hardest creatures to capture in Johto, a reputation that persists in fan memories to this day. The roaming system also gave Entei an identity distinct from its counterparts. Where the phoenix could be pursued with patience and ritual, this beast demanded persistence and resourcefulness. Trainers often turned to tactics like using fast Pokémon with moves that prevent fleeing, or relying on tracking tools in Crystal to predict its movements. Even with preparation, however, catching Entei was an ordeal, one that felt almost like hunting a wildfire itself, unpredictable, fast, and dangerous. Beyond the games, its design reflects both mythological inspiration and creative originality. The lion-like form, complete with flowing mane and imposing stature, ties it to associations with strength, nobility, and dominance. The volcanic imagery, suggested by the eruption-like smoke that seems to rise from its back, reinforces its connection to fire as a natural and unstoppable force. Its roar is even said to trigger volcanic eruptions, making it both a symbol of nature's grandeur and a reminder of its destructive potential. The anime expanded on this by casting Entei in several memorable roles, most famously in the third Pokémon movie. In that film, it was depicted not as a destructive force, but as a guardian conjured from the dreams of a lonely girl. This interpretation added layers of complexity to its character, showing that even a creature tied so closely to fire and destruction could be reimagined as protective and kind under the right circumstances. For many fans, this portrayal became their first deep emotional connection to the beast, cementing its legacy as more than just a difficult capture in the games. Mechanically, Entei's early appearances in battle left something to be desired. In gold and silver, despite its fearsome design and lore, its move pool was limited, often leaving players disappointed that such an awe-inspiring creature struggled to live up to its reputation in combat. Over time, however, subsequent generations rectified this, granting it stronger moves like Sacred Fire, as well as better stats and abilities that finally matched its mythic presence. This evolution in its competitive standing mirrors the story of its rebirth from a weakened state after the tower's destruction to a powerful force recognized across the franchise. An interesting aspect of Entei's lore is how it parallels real-world mythologies about fire spirits or divine beasts associated with volcanoes. In many cultures, volcanoes are revered as both destructive and life-giving, creating fertile soil even as they obliterate landscapes. The beast's connection to volcanic eruptions reflects this duality, making it more than a one-note symbol of chaos. It embodies the natural cycle of destruction leading to creation, aligning perfectly with Johto's overarching themes of balance and renewal. Another often overlooked element is how the roaming mechanic mirrors the very nature of fire. Wildfires spread unpredictably, appearing in one place only to vanish and flare up somewhere else. This is exactly how players experienced Entei in the games. Just when they thought they had cornered it, it would flee to another part of the region. This design decision was more than just a frustrating mechanic. It was a thematic stroke of genius that tied gameplay directly to lore. In the remakes Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the roaming experience was refined with better tracking tools, but the sense of urgency and unpredictability remained intact. This ensured that newer generations of players still experience the thrill and exasperation of hunting down Johto's fire beast. It's a perfect example of how Game Freak has preserved the spirit of its legendaries while making their encounters more approachable over time. The beast's connection to the other two resurrected creatures also strengthens its narrative role. Together, the trio represents not just elemental forces, but also the cycle of the storm that destroyed the Brass Tower, lightning that struck, rain that fell, and fire that consumed. Of the three, Entei is arguably the most visceral, embodying the destructive climax of the event. Its revival at the hands of the Rainbow Guardian transforms it from a symbol of devastation into one of endurance and renewal. This duality makes it one of the most complex and fascinating legendary Pokémon in the Johto region. Even outside the games and anime, Entei has left its mark on the franchise. Its image adorns trading cards, merchandise, and promotional material, often depicted with roaring flames and volcanic backdrops. The consistency of its portrayal across media highlights just how strongly its identity resonates with fans. While other legendaries might fade into obscurity, this beast has maintained a steady presence, thanks in part to its unforgettable introduction in Johto's mythology. Ultimately, Entei's story is one of transformation, born from tragedy, tied to destruction, and often frustrating to capture. It nevertheless represents endurance, renewal, and the untamed beauty of fire. For players, encountering it is a reminder that not all challenges are meant to be straightforward, and that sometimes the most rewarding victories come from persistence against overwhelming odds. In this way, Entei embodies not just fire, but the fiery determination of the trainers who pursue it. In Johto's mythology, lightning is not simply a fleeting flash in the sky. It is a force that rends clouds, ignites fires, and awakens both fear and awe in those who witness it. Raikou, one of the three legendary beasts born from the tragedy of the Brass Tower, embodies this elemental power. Alongside its counterparts tied to fire and rain, it serves as a living reminder of the storm that destroyed the tower. Where the fire beast represents the consuming blaze and the water beast reflects the rain that fell too late, Raikou is the strike of lightning itself, sudden, fierce, and impossible to control. The design of this legendary reflects its elemental theme perfectly. Its saber-toothed feline form suggests raw predatory strength, while the storm cloud-like mane evokes the thunderheads that gather before a storm. The jagged tail, reminiscent of a lightning bolt, reinforces its role as the embodiment of electricity. In this way, the creature's very appearance communicates the danger and energy it represents, even before players learn its backstory. In Gold and Silver, the mechanics of encountering Raikou were identical to those of its counterparts. It roamed the Johto region, once released from the burned tower. This roaming system made capturing it one of the most arduous tasks in the games. Just as players began a battle, it would flee almost immediately, forcing them to prepare specialized strategies if they hoped to succeed. Many turned to tactics such as using Mean Look to prevent escape, or relying on fast Pokémon capable of paralyzing or sleeping their quarry before it could flee. Despite such efforts, countless players remember the frustration of seeing Raikou's sprite disappear from the screen after a single turn. The decision to make Raikou a roaming legendary was more than just a design challenge. It reflected the very nature of lightning, unpredictable, fleeting, and impossible to capture without great effort. By forcing trainers to chase it across routes, Game Freak created an experience that felt thematically perfect. Each glimpse of Raikou in the wild was like witnessing a lightning strike, sudden, thrilling, and gone in an instant. Lore surrounding the beast deepens its significance. According to Johto's legends, when the Brass Tower burned, the Rainbow Guardian resurrected three creatures that had perished within the flames. Each was imbued with the power of an element tied to the storm: fire, water, and lightning. Raikou's role in this trio is particularly fitting, as lightning often heralds the storm's arrival. In many cultures, lightning is associated with divine wrath or sudden inspiration, and Raikou captures that duality. It is both fearsome and majestic, a creature to be respected as much as feared. The anime expanded on this image, giving Raikou moments that highlighted both its elusiveness and its strength. In Pokémon Chronicles, for instance, an episode focused on its appearance and the awe it inspired in those who witnessed it. Unlike some other legendaries, Raikou was not portrayed as a guardian tied to human characters or rituals, but rather as a wild, independent force of nature. This aligned perfectly with its in-game mechanics, reinforcing the idea that Raikou cannot be contained easily, either in narrative or in battle. In competitive battling, Raikou initially suffered from limited moves, much like its fire counterpart. However, its impressive speed and special attack gave it a niche as a reliable offensive threat. Over time, it gained access to more versatile moves, including Calm Mind and Aura Sphere in later generations, which allowed it to carve out a more prominent role. Its typing as an electric Pokémon also gave it an advantage in many matchups, making it a consistent presence in certain tiers of competitive play. In this way, Raikou overcame its early limitations to live up to its legendary status. What also sets Raikou apart is how its myth and mechanics intertwine with broader themes of Johto. The region is steeped in stories about balance, cycles, and respect for nature. Raiku's existence serves as a reminder of the sudden and destructive power of storms, but also of their necessity. Without lightning, there is no rainstorm. Without storms, there is no renewal of the land. By tying Raikou to this cycle, the games give it a role beyond being just a difficult Pokemon to catch. It becomes a symbol of nature's balance in the region. The symbolism extends even further when considering how players interact with Raikou. The act of pursuing it across Johto mirrors humanity's attempt to harness lightning throughout history. From ancient myths about thunder gods to modern science's quest to control electricity, lightning has always represented humanity's struggle with forces larger than itself. In a sense, chasing Raikou through tall grass is a playful reenactment of that timeless pursuit, the attempt to tame the untamable. Visually, Raikou's striking colors and imposing form have helped it remain a fan favorite. Its purple mane, golden body, and storm cloud patterns set it apart from nearly every other design in the franchise. The combination of feline strength and elemental symbolism resonates with players on both an aesthetic and thematic level. It feels like a predator born of the storm, perfectly adapted to the chaos it represents. In remakes like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the experience of encountering Raikou was improved with the Pokegear's tracking system. This allowed players to follow its movements more easily, though it still retained its frustrating tendency to flee. The addition of this mechanic was widely praised, as it struck a balance between preserving the difficulty of capturing Raikou and reducing the randomness that made the original experience so daunting. In this way, the remakes honored the original intent while making the encounter more enjoyable. Another fascinating aspect is how Raikou interacts with the other two beasts. Together, they form a trio that represents the complete cycle of the storm that destroyed the Brass Tower: lightning, rain, and fire. In this trinity, Raikou is the catalyst, the spark that begins the chain reaction. Its presence reminds players that even small, fleeting moments of power can trigger larger events. This makes it not only a key part of Johto's mythology, but also a metaphor for change and transformation. Outside the games, Raikou has had a consistent presence in trading cards and merchandise, often depicted with dramatic storm imagery. Artists frequently highlight its connection to thunderclouds and lightning strikes, reinforcing the themes that define its identity. These portrayals keep Raikou relevant across generations, even as newer legendaries are introduced. It remains a symbol of raw, unpredictable power, admired by fans for its elegance and ferocity. Ultimately, Raikou's legacy lies in its ability to embody lightning both in gameplay and in story. It is elusive, powerful, and fleeting, demanding respect from anyone who encounters it. For players, the experience of chasing Raikou across Johto is unforgettable, not just because of the frustration it caused, but because it captured the very essence of what a legendary should be. Something greater than ordinary creatures, a force of nature made flesh. Through design, mechanics, and myth, Raikou continues to strike like thunder in the hearts of fans, long after their first encounter. In Johto's stories of elemental balance, water is the force that cleanses, heals, and restores. The beast that embodies this role is Suicune, the legendary tied to the rain that fell after the fire consumed the Brass Tower. Where its counterparts symbolize destruction through fire and the sudden strike of lightning, this one reflects renewal. It is often described as the purest of the trio, a roaming spirit of water that travels across the land to purify rivers and lakes. Its connection to the natural cycle of cleansing and rebirth makes it one of the most revered legendary beings in the region's lore. The design immediately communicates this role. The flowing, ribbon-like mane suggests the movement of waves and the ever-changing surface of water. Its sleek, graceful body evokes the image of a creature capable of gliding effortlessly across rivers or sprinting through mist-covered fields. With a crystal crest that resembles frozen ice, the creature bridges the states of water itself, liquid, vapor, and solid. This symbolism highlights its role not only as a representative of rainfall, but also as a guardian of the natural water cycle in all its forms. Mechanically, the experience of encountering Suicune in gold and silver mirrored that of its counterparts. Once released from the burned tower, it roamed across the Johto region, appearing randomly and fleeing battle almost immediately. Just like lightning's fleeting strike or the fire's untamed spread, it was a challenge to track down. However, unlike the other two, Suicune later became more central to the game's stories, especially in Crystal. In that version, it received a narrative focus that set it apart, elevating it from being one of three into a central legendary with unique importance. In Pokemon Crystal, players encountered a dedicated subplot that revolved around Suicune. This storyline introduced Eugene, a character obsessed with pursuing the legendary. Throughout the journey, he appears multiple times, expressing his admiration and determination to meet the creature. For many players, this subplot was one of the highlights of the game, as it gave the legendary a personality beyond its role as a roaming encounter. The chase became not only a gameplay mechanic, but also a story of devotion and admiration. Ultimately, Crystal allowed players to battle and catch Suicune in a fixed location at the Tin Tower, a shift from its elusive roaming nature. This gave players a greater sense of closure and reinforced its role as a central figure in Johto's mythology. This transition from an elusive roamer to a legendary tied to a story arc reflected the thematic nature of water itself. Water is adaptable, sometimes elusive and uncontrollable, like the rain that runs off rooftops, and at other times calm and central, like a lake that sits at the heart of a community. By changing its mechanics between games, Game Freak created an experience that reflected this duality. In Gold and Silver, the beast was untamed and unpredictable. In Crystal, it became approachable, even attainable, representing calm and clarity. Competitive players also found uses for Suicune thanks to its defensive qualities. With strong special defense, high overall bulk, and access to Calm Mind, it became a formidable wall that could slowly build momentum in battles. The strategy nicknamed Crocune, involving rest, sleep talk, calm mind, and surf, became notorious for its ability to wear down opponents over long matches. This gave the creature a reputation not just as a story-driven legendary, but as a staple in serious battles, remembered for its resilience and reliability. The anime further expanded its legacy. In Pokemon Forever, Suicune appeared as a guardian figure connected to Celebi, another legendary tied to nature and time. In this story, it was depicted not as a fleeting roamer, but as a protector, appearing at pivotal moments to heal or guide. This portrayal emphasized its role as a benevolent force of nature, in contrast to the more fearsome images often associated with other legendaries. By presenting Suicune as a creature of peace and restoration, the anime helped solidify its reputation as one of the most noble and serene legendaries. Symbolically, the creature's association with water connects it to ideas of cleansing and renewal across many cultures. Water has long been viewed as sacred, capable of purifying both physically and spiritually. By tying Suicune to the restoration of polluted rivers and lakes, the games draw on this cultural symbolism. It becomes more than just a legendary beast, it is a guardian of balance, ensuring that nature remains untainted and life can flourish. What makes Suicune particularly beloved among fans is this noble characterization. While many legendaries are depicted as forces of chaos or destruction, it is consistently portrayed as calm, wise, and benevolent. This sets it apart in a franchise filled with titanic battles and cataclysmic powers. For players, encountering Suicune often felt like meeting a mythical guardian rather than just another challenge to overcome. The experience was tinged with reverence, as though they were being allowed to glimpse something truly special. In the remakes, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the legendary once again played a unique role. The subplot with Yucine returned, reinforcing the themes of pursuit and devotion that Crystal had introduced. Players who engaged with this storyline found themselves not only chasing the creature across Johto, but also experiencing the admiration and near obsession of Yucine firsthand. This gave the entire pursuit a more emotional layer, emphasizing the idea that legendary creatures are more than just powerful of Pokemon. They are symbols of wonder that inspire humans to reach beyond themselves. Visually, the design has stood the test of time. Its elegance, flowing mane, and icy crest have made it instantly recognizable and memorable. Fans often highlight it as one of the most beautifully designed legendaries, with its colors and features perfectly complementing its lore. The way it embodies both strength and grace mirrors the duality of water, a force that can carve valleys over millennia, but also soothe and sustain life in an instant. Trading cards and other media have also emphasized this image. Suicune is often depicted in artwork surrounded by mist or standing over water, reinforcing its role as a guardian tied to rivers, lakes, and rain. This consistent imagery across different platforms has helped maintain its identity, ensuring that even fans who first encountered it decades ago still see it as a symbol of calm, power, and purity. In broader discussions of Johto's legendary beasts, Suicune is frequently singled out as the most prominent. Its central role in Crystal, combined with its portrayal in other media, has given it a level of prominence that even its companions sometimes lack. Yet it never overshadows them entirely. Instead, it stands as a complement to their ferocity. Together, the trio represents the balance of natural forces, with Suicune acting as the healing rain after the storm's fire and lightning. Ultimately, the legacy of this legendary rests in its role as both a challenge and a comfort. Players remember the frustration of chasing it endlessly across routes, only for it to flee in an instant. They also remember the satisfaction of finally capturing it, of knowing that such a majestic creature was now part of their journey. Beyond mechanics, they recall its grace, its symbolism, and its role as a guardian of nature. Through all of these elements, Suicune has secured its place not only as a legendary beast of Johto, but as a beloved figure across the entire franchise. Among the many legends that give Johto its identity, one stands apart as a guardian of time itself. Celebi, often called the voice of the forest, is known not only as a mythical Pokemon, but also as a living symbol of nature's resilience and continuity. From the moment players first heard whispers of its existence back in the days of Gold and Silver, it became the kind of creature that blurred the line between gameplay and mystery, leaving trainers in awe of the idea that something so elusive could even exist. Unlike many of the Pokemon introduced in Johto, this one was not encountered through a normal journey or by progressing through the region. Instead, its appearances were tied to special events, rumors, and myths, which only amplified its reputation as something otherworldly. One of the most fascinating details about Celebi is its unique typing. Being both grass and psychic, it carries a combination that reflects its connection to nature and the mystical. The grass element ties it firmly to forests, growth, and renewal, while the psychic aspect points to its powers beyond the ordinary powers of time travel and wisdom that feel well beyond what most Pokemon can achieve. This dual typing also gave it some interesting strengths and weaknesses in battle, though most trainers never had a chance to test it firsthand during the early years, since access to it was so restricted. The combination made it vulnerable to common types like Bug and Dark, but these vulnerabilities did little to diminish the wonder surrounding it. The heart of Celebi's lore lies in its ability to move through time. Within the Pokemon world, time travel is rarely mentioned, let alone embodied by a creature players can meet. This mythical figure wasn't presented as a destroyer or manipulator of history, but rather as a gentle overseer that ensures forests thrive and nature's cycles continue. In stories told within the games and supplementary material, Celebi is said to appear during times of peace, and its presence alone is a sign that the forest and the world around it are healthy. This made encountering it not just a rare event, but a blessing, something that confirmed balance in the ecosystem. In terms of in-game history, few Pokemon have been tied to events quite like Celebi. In the original Gold and Silver versions, it could only be obtained with the use of a special item called the GS Ball, which was distributed in extremely limited promotions. For most players outside of Japan, this made Celebi feel more like a myth than a reality. Even though the creature existed in the game's code, the method to encounter it was locked away, leaving fans to share rumors on playgrounds and online forums about supposed ways to unlock the secret. For many, the mystery around how to find it was just as memorable as actually obtaining it. That same sense of mystery carried over to the anime, where Celebi was given one of the most emotional roles of any legendary Pokemon. In the fourth movie, Pokemon Forever, the little guardian was shown traveling through time, forming a deep bond with Ash and another trainer. Its role in the story highlighted themes of friendship, sacrifice, and the importance of protecting nature. For many fans, this portrayal solidified the idea that Celebi wasn't just another collectible creature, it was a representation of something bigger, the health of the environment and the passage of time itself. From a gameplay perspective, Celebi was designed with well-balanced stats, leaning towards strong defensive capabilities and an ability to support a team with status moves. Unlike Pokemon that defined power through raw strength, this one's role was often more subtle, focusing on utility and resilience. It could learn moves like Heal Bell, which cured status conditions across the team, and Leech Seed, which drained opponents over time. These qualities made it a strategic choice for battles, especially in formats where patience and planning were rewarded. In a way, its role in battle mirrored its lore, not about brute force, but about maintaining balance. What also makes Celebi unique is its recurring appearances across different generations, always tied to special events. Unlike many Pokemon that are caught through exploration or story progression, this one required participation in real-world distributions. These events gave trainers the opportunity to meet Celebi under special conditions, often making it feel like a reward for dedication and community involvement. Even though these events were sometimes rare or difficult to attend, they reinforced the sense that Celebi was not meant to be just another Pokemon, it was meant to be special. The mythology surrounding Celebi also tied into Johto's deep forest settings. The Ilex Forest, a location filled with mystery and history, was said to be the home of this guardian. Many players would wander there, hoping for a glimpse or a clue, even if the official method to encounter it wasn't accessible. This added a layer of atmosphere to the forest itself, turning it into more than just another area. To traverse, it became a place of legend, where players felt that something magical could happen at any time. From a cultural perspective, Celebi also symbolized a shift in how Pokemon stories were told. With its themes of time travel, nature, and the importance of peace, it carried messages that went beyond simple battles and victories. It showed that the world of Pokemon could explore deeper, almost philosophical themes, appealing not only to children, but also to older fans who found meaning in its stories. Its rarity made it all the more powerful as a narrative tool, as not everyone could obtain it, but everyone could imagine what it represented. Another interesting note is how Celebi has been consistently associated with events that look backward and forward in time. In remakes like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, a special event allowed players to travel back in time to witness a key moment in the villainous Team Rocket's past, all guided by Celebi. This further expanded the idea that it was not just a protector of forests, but a being capable of safeguarding history itself. Its involvement in that event became one of the most memorable experiences for players lucky enough to trigger it, as it connected gameplay to the broader lore in a way few other Pokemon could. In modern games, Celebi continues to be treated with reverence, often appearing in ways that honor its legendary status. Its design, small and fairy-like, with a green body and delicate wings, reinforces its role as a gentle presence rather than a fearsome one. Unlike dragons or titans, Celebi captures attention through elegance and symbolism. The fact that such a small figure could be tied to such immense power only deepens its appeal, reminding players that greatness isn't always measured by size or strength. Looking at its legacy, it's clear that Celebi embodies more than just rarity. It represents the mystery that kept players glued to their screens, the thrill of playground rumors, and the satisfaction of finally seeing something once thought impossible. Whether through events, movies, or remakes, its presence has always been a reminder of how Pokemon can bridge the gap between fantasy and reality. Even today, discussions about it bring back memories of the early days of Johto, when so much of the game world was still a mystery waiting to be uncovered. As a closing thought, Celebi stands as a perfect example of how Pokemon can be more than just creatures to catch. It serves as a symbol of hope, peace, and the enduring magic of discovery. For those who grew up hearing rumors of the GS Ball or watching it flutter through the forest in the anime, it remains unforgettable. And while few trainers have truly had the chance to add it to their team in the earliest days, its impact has been felt by all, shaping the way players look at mythical Pokemon to this day. And that wraps up our calm journey through the Johto region, where legends, myths, and unforgettable creatures brought the world to life. From forests filled with mystery to stories that stretch across time itself, Johto will always hold a special place in Pokemon history. May these tales carry you gently into rest, just as the region's guardians watch over their world in peace.